Hi everyone, it's me, Sean Jones, and I am here to cook for you again this year for the farm to your table through the Jamestown Public Market, which is part of St. Luke's Episcopal Church, and I am also a member of St. Luke's Episcopal Church. I am also a certified recovery peer advocate at the Mental Health Association, and some of you may know me from my restaurant in the past, Jones 212 Bakery and Cafe and Jones Valhalla. But anyways, I am here today to show you, with my good friend Luke, how to make a stuffed delicata squash meal for either yourself or your family or your friends, whatever it is. These are our ingredients that we're using today. Very simple. It's the delicata squash. We just have some tomatoes, couple peppers, onion, Swiss chard, the chorizo, and some maple syrup. No, you do not have to use the entire gallon, but I'll show you how much you're going to use. And then just butter, salt, and pepper. That's it. So very simple, but when you make this for yourself, you'll see just how flavorful it is. So first and foremost, what we're going to do is I want to get the peppers and onions going in the pan, which will be over here. I'm using a cast iron pan. If you have one, I suggest, go for it. If you don't, that's fine too. You can just use a regular saute pan. But we're going to start with these first because what we want to do is start to not necessarily caramelize them, because that takes a very long time, but we're going to be what's called sweating them. And what that does is that does bring out a lot of the flavors in the onions and the peppers, but it also pulls out some of the natural sugars. So we're going to start with that. All right, so here we go. So what I'm going to do is dice the onion. I'm going to show you the way I like to do them. I found this to be the easiest way to do throughout the years. So I'm just going to cut off either end of the onion, cut it in half. Take the tip of your knife. You're not going to go all the way through the onion. I'm not sure which way to do this, but you're going to leave, I don't know, about 2 centimeters on the other side. And you're just going to bring your knife down and through. Same thing, your pieces, or your slices, I should say, are going to be about 2 or 3 centimeters. You go down. The reason why you do that is then it all holds the onion still together. So now you can turn it. Your side that's still together can be on your left-hand side. As you can see, the open parts are on the right-hand side. And the reason why we do this is now we take our knife and we just gently slide it down through, and it will dice it up. And you go until you get to where you started your slices. Go ahead and move that over. And now you just have that one nice piece of onion left, one slice of onion left. And then you can just, same kind of thing, slide your knife down through it, gently turning it as you move to get little dices as well from that piece. And there you go. You have a, I'm not going to say perfectly diced onion, but you have a diced onion nonetheless. So I'm going to turn on the burner. I got it. No, not that one. This one. There we go. Now, this is a very high-powered stove. I'm not going full heat. I'm going about 3/4 heat. Cast iron pan on there. I'm going to grab a couple pieces of butter. There we go. I've already cubed up the butter earlier, so it's just ready to go. That's going to be a little over 1/4 stick of butter. And then I'm going to take my onion, put it right in. I want to put the onions in first so that they can just get going. All right. Now, as I said earlier, all I'm using is salt and pepper. So, it's going to kind of spread those out. Pinch of salt. Well, let's do 2 pinches of salt. And 1 little pinch of pepper. You don't want to go too crazy with the pepper, just because it will start to be overbearing. All right, so while those are going, I'm going to come back over here and cut up the peppers. The easiest way I have found to dice a pepper is like so. Take your pepper, Turn it on its side. Now you see on the pepper how it dips down where the stem is, okay? So an easy way to do that is you put your knife on the pepper, not as deep as the dent goes, but a little past that. You come down through and you see that that takes that top off and part of your stem, okay? You turn it this way to get the bottom part. You can kind of do the same, but this you want it to be about even with the bottom of the pepper. You don't want that piece of the pepper though, so we're going to put that over there. But as you can see, so that's leaving all of the seeds inside of there. So then all you have to do is take your fingers, kind of reach in there gently, and for the most part you can pull it all right out. Then you take your pepper, just put one slice down through it and open it up. Now you can see these fleshy parts on the inside, and all you have to do, gently lay your knife on the pepper and slowly come across, very slowly, because your hand's right there. If you push too hard, you're going to go right into your fingers. That's no good. Come across and just nicely take that out. So now you have a nice clean pepper. Okay, now to dice it, what you want to do is cut it into julienne strips. So you just nicely rock your knife back and forth. Notice I'm not coming down on it like this. I'm not chopping it. I'm letting the knife do the work. So it's just sliding across, getting nice little strips. And get to the end, I slow down a little bit. Okay, so now I have those. What I'm going to do is try to turn them a little bit, keep them in line as best as I can. Again, this doesn't have to be completely perfect, but as you can see, now I've got some over here. We'll get to those ones in a second, but I've got these ones to start with. So same thing, you're just going to kind of hold them together gently, and then gently let your knife do the work to come through and dice them up. And then grab these pieces, kind of get them together. It's a lot easier if you have a really big, tall pepper, but, you know, you can do it with any size pepper, and then you just come down through, same thing. Take your time and dice them up. So there I go, I've got these peppers. I'm gonna add those to our onions that are already going. Then I will come back over to this side, and now I'm gonna do the same with the red pepper that I just did with the orange pepper. So here we are. Put those into the pan. And now that I have both the peppers in the pan in there with the onion, I'm just going to start to stir it up a little bit, get that mixed up. I mean, you can see our onions are just cooking nicely. Nothing's getting out of control. Now notice, I'm not over here every 2 seconds stirring everything. Just let it cook. The more you stir it, the cooler it gets. The more you just kind of let it sit, it's going to stay warm and continue to cook. Now that being said, you do have to keep an eye on it. You don't want it to burn, but we're okay. So now that I've added the peppers, I've added a new ingredient to this mixture, so I have to add a little more salt. And just a tad bit more pepper. You want to do that with each ingredient you add, because as you add a new ingredient, you want it to be seasoned. If you only season it the very first time, all you're doing is seasoning the onions and nothing else that you're putting in here, so the flavor's not going to be there. So every time you add an ingredient, you want to season it just a little bit more. All right, so now we'll cut up our tomatoes. I'm just going to use 2 tomatoes. But what I'm going to do first is, see right there, that's the from the stem. I want to get that out of there, so I'm just very gently taking my knife. You can use a smaller knife. I've got it at an angle. I would assume that's probably 45 degrees. And you just kind of cut that out because you really don't need that. Do the same with this one. So now the tomatoes, I'm not necessarily going to dice them. I'm just going to kind of chop them up. An easy way to kind of do that is you could just, now, well, you can do it either way. You can do it coming down across the tomato like this. You can cut it into cubes, I mean, however you want, but the way I'm going to do it is just cut it into slices so it all kind of falls together. Same thing, I'm taking my time. Notice I'm not pushing straight down with the knife. That's just going to smush your tomato. I'm letting it slide down through it. Letting, again, the knife do the work. Now I've got 2 little stacks of tomato, and now what I'm going to do is just kind of bigger chunks. So see, I cut into thirds, turn it, and just go through and chop it again. Now I don't have to worry about getting this real small in size of like diced, because it's a tomato, it's going to break down in that pan. The pieces will become small themselves just by kind of cooking, if that makes sense to you. Maybe it doesn't make sense to me, so that's why I'm doing it. So as you can see too, our onions and our peppers are really starting to darken a little bit, brown. And like I said, what's happening is they're being sweated. So a lot of those natural sugars are coming out, and we want those. So now we put in the tomato. So you can hear all that juice hitting the pan right off the bat. A little salt, and then just a little pinch of pepper. Now again, I'm just gonna stir this all up, because that's the other important thing too with when you're seasoning with the salt and pepper, or anything for that matter, you want to stir it up right after you put it in, so that it starts to distribute across everything. So as you can see, I mean, that's already starting to look pretty nice. And the tomatoes are breaking down very quickly, which is nice. And that has a lot to do with the cast iron. Cast iron's awesome to cook in. If you don't have a cast iron pan, go get one. Not even just for this, but for anything you cook. All right, so next, what I'm gonna add is the chorizo. So, for those of you that don't know, I will read the ingredients. It's pork, and then it says vinegar, salt and spices. Salt again, see that? Salt, seasoning, seasoned, but that doesn't mean we can't add more. We're still gonna add a little more, because you can't trust someone else to season stuff for you, unless it's me. But anyways. It also includes red pepper, oregano, paprika, garlic, and then flavoring. Interesting, flavoring. Who doesn't like flavoring? But so chorizo is a sausage. It's not cased. This is the ground chorizo. It does have a little kick to it. It's not ridiculously spicy, but it does have a little kick, just so you know. But it's delicious, and you will see at the end, after you're done cooking yours, just how delicious it is, if you've never had it. If you've had it, you know what to expect. So all I'm gonna do, open up the package. All right, so now we're just gonna add this right to our pan. Now you don't wanna just let it sit in there in a big lump, because then that's how it'll cook, and it'll almost become like a burger. So what you wanna do, take your spoon, whatever you're using, and just start to break it apart, kind of chopping it up in there. Now, the reason why I didn't put this in very first thing in the pan is because then it would have became overcooked. The reason why I'm putting it in after the tomatoes is because of all that natural juice that's in the tomatoes, and of course in the peppers and the onions as well. But what will happen is this will help keep it moist while it's cooking. Just skip this part. If you're doing the veggie option, just skip it. If you want to have a little bit of heat to yours, because you don't have the ground chorizo, you could add a little paprika, maybe a little bit of crushed red pepper if you like crushed red pepper. No, yeah, 100%. Yeah, you can do it naturally, yes, with a hot pepper. Again, if you're used to using hot peppers, then you know what you're doing. If you're not, take it slow. Or else you're going to pay for it, not only while you're eating it, but probably later on.
Exactly.
We won't get into that, though.
One end or the other.
This This is true, Luke. This is true.
Now, what you didn't mention was where the meat was from. So this chorizo is from Pennsylvania. It's from Sugar Creek, or Sugar Grove, rather.
Sugar Grove.
Really local, and so it's easier to get ground meat locally because we don't have a butcher in the region, and so it's easier to get ground meat. So that's our local. When we provide local meat, usually it's ground because that's just the reality of what the scenario is.
Well, there you go. The next thing we're gonna do is get our delicatas ready. Now, you know, if you wanted to, you could cut them right in half to stuff them, but I mean, they're not big as it is, so I'm thinking a cooler way, a little bit more interesting way to do it is in half, and you'll see how I'm going to do that, in half lengthwise, I should say. So I'm going to cut that little bit of a stem off, just because when you're cutting it lengthwise, the stem could turn into a little bit of a pain for you. So we're going to do that. I'm going to turn it lengthwise. Now, when you do this, make sure you have a sharp knife, number one. If you don't, I'm going to show you two different ways to do it, but just take your time, because the outside of a squash, as we all know, is hard. It's tough to get through it. So two ways to kind of do it. First way, just take your knife and kind of get it in there. All right, start to make your line. You take the palm of your hand, kind of tap it, see how it's going down through, and then you can just finish it off. And now you're open. Another way to do it, I'll show you with this one. So same thing, I want to take that stem off the top, stand it up. It's a little bit harder, especially if it's not completely flat, okay? But you take your knife, same kind of thing. You can start it in there, tap it until it gets down, and then you go down through. Whichever way feels safer for you. Personally, I like the laying it down, okay? But like I said, you can do this stand up, and I mean, you can, once you get it in there, tap it with your hand a couple times, you can even kind of rock it down and through. But don't use a serrated knife, like you're not sawing it. That's just gonna ruin the inside. You wanna use a good knife. It's important to have good sharp knives in your house anyways. Makes your cooking a heck of a lot easier. So the next thing we have to do is get the seeds out of there. Now, because these are locally grown, you can save these seeds and you can plant them yourself in your own garden if you have a garden. If you don't have a garden, start one. You just got a bunch of free seeds, right? Start a garden. You can have all the delicata squash you want. But anyways, take a little spoon, and we're gonna get rid of these seeds so that we can throw them in Luke's compost pile. So just lightly take your spoon, because you don't want to dig down super deep. You just want to get the seeds out and that little bit of the meat that holds the seeds together. I got to get rid of some of these over here. Okay, I'm not really going to put them in Luke's compost pile, only because Willow would get mad. She would go, hey, that's my compost pile. Why are all these delicatas growing? And then Luke would get in trouble because of something I did, and that's not cool. I do that to him enough. I digress. So we've taken the seeds out of that one. Now I'm going to quickly do it to the other three as well to get them ready. All right, so we clean those out. I'm just kind of stirring this up over here to see how it's going, which it's actually going quite nice. It's looking delicious. So what I'm going to do next, those are clean. The reason why I kind of did that is I'm giving, that's giving me a little bit of time to do something while the chorizo is cooking, because of course it is meat. It does take a little bit longer than the vegetables to cook, so I'm just doing that so that it's ready. The next thing I'm going to do is the syrup. Ouch. Geez. So again, I'm not using the entire gallon, but it's what we got. I mean, I guess if you make this for dinner, then the next day you can have a pancake breakfast at your house and invite lots of friends, because you now have a gallon of syrup. Now this is local maple syrup. Let's see where this one's produced at. This is from Sinclairville. That's pretty cool. I like Sinclairville. So, I mean, so that's just the thing too. Like when you go to the grocery store, you don't have to buy, you know, these corporate made syrups. Like, I mean, you can buy syrup that comes from your own backyard. I mean, and the truth is when you buy things like syrup and honey that come from your own backyard, it's actually better for you, your system, your immune system, because this has local allergens in it, right? Because it's a tree. Same with honey. Local honey can actually help you. If you're ingesting it on a regular basis, it can actually help you come allergy season because your body has built up a tolerance to it. Kind of neat, right? But anyways, because the local bees, they fly around, local plants, kind of get it? All right. So what I'm going to do is add just a little bit of this maple syrup to what we have happening over here on the stove. All right, so don't try this at home with the whole gallon because you could have quite a mess on your hands. But if you are daring, you can, and what you do is just slightly tip it, because natural syrup does come out a little bit thinner too. So I'm just gently, as you can see, that is a very low stream. Went around the outsides and then a little bit in the middle. So not a lot at all. And then again, I'm just stirring it all up. But now because I added the syrup, and the syrup is sugary, right? And it looks like our sausage, our chorizo is nice and cooked. What I'm gonna do is turn this heat down because the syrup will burn quickly. That's why this is one of the last things I'm putting in. Okay, so the syrup is in there. What do we add next, Luke?
Salt, pepper.
That's right, just a little bit of salt and pepper. Not a ton, just a little bit. Because same thing, you know, you want to be able to taste that syrup. So a little bit of salt and a little bit of pepper. And if you don't believe me about the salt, next time you buy ice cream, look at the ingredients. Guarantee there's salt in it. Not because you want your ice cream to taste like salt, but because it needs to be seasoned so that you can taste the flavors even in your ice cream. All right. The jug of maple syrup out of here. So next we have the Swiss chard, which is a wonderful leafy green. Now I'm not going to use all of this just because there would be a lot to throw in there, but I'm going to use about half. Okay, and as we know, greens cook quickly once put into the pan, so that's why this is the last ingredient. Okay, so all I'm doing is I've got them kind of stacked up. I've kind of smushed it together so it's in a nice little bunch. I'm going to go through and just cut it in these nice little strips, holding it together. And then yes, even these nice little chunks of stalk are going to get chopped up and put in there. Now, as you see, I took my time. It all kind of stayed somewhat together. Not perfectly, but it stayed together. So now I'm going to take my knife and just gently come down right through the middle, just to cut it in half again. And so now you can see we just have these nice strips. I'm just going to pick them up. And then I'm going to come over here and just put them right in the pan.
Salt and pepper.
That's right. A little salt. And a little pepper. Okay. So now I've put the Swiss chard in there. Remember, I turned the heat down while we were chopping it up so it wouldn't burn. Now that I'm over here and I'm actually going to be able to keep an eye on it, I'm going to turn the heat back up. Hold on to your pan and just start to mix this up. Now the reason why I'm turning the heat up is because I don't want everything else to cook slowly while waiting for the Swiss chard to wither into the dish. And I don't mean wither in a bad way. I mean, it's just that's what it's doing. Think about if you cook spinach, you know, you can put 42 pounds of spinach into a pan and you will come out with, you know, a piece of spinach about this big for the plate because spinach cooks down. So that's any leafy green. So what I'm doing is just mixing this up so it does get mixed around. All right, so now that's all mixed in there. You can see that the Swiss chard has been incorporated into the dish. What I'm going to do now, before I decide to stuff the squash with it, is take my trusty dusty spoon, grab just a little bit, make sure there's a little bit of everything in it. And be careful, it's going to be hot. But we want to see if we've properly seasoned it, right? I mean, we have been adding the salt and pepper the whole way, but you still have to taste it. You don't know what it's going to taste like until you taste it. So I'm going to blow on it too because it's really hot. And I don't want to burn my tongue in front of you nice people. Just kind of blow on it. Get it cool. Okay, here we go. Perfect. Absolutely perfect. Not everything I do in my life is perfect. Not everything I cook in life is perfect. But that's perfect. So there we go. So what we're going to do next is turn our pan off because everything's pretty much cooked, ready to rock on that. And what I'm going to do is bring our little squashies over here. That's right, I said squashies. Well, let's see. You know what? There's only 2 of us, Luke, right?
That's right.
So I'm just gonna. You guys are gonna have more at home. So, but for time-wise, me and Luke are just gonna stuff 2 of them real quick. We'll do the other ones later. We don't have all the time in the world to let 4 squash bake, so we're just gonna do 2. All right. So here we go. Oh, I don't want that spoon. I grabbed a different spoon to pick up with. So I'm going to grab the cast iron pan, come over here, stir it up. And you can use a tiny spoon if you want to take your time. That's up to you, however you want to do it. Just take it and just put it right in there. And don't get too crazy. I mean, you can get crazy if you want. It's totally up to you. You can throw it up against the wall for all I care. But I'm not going to get that crazy. And I wouldn't throw it up against the wall because it tastes too good. But anyways, just kind of pack it down in there. Now, I mean, it's up to you. If you were thinking, geez, Sean, wouldn't it be nice to put something on top of that? Well, it's up to you. If you wanted to put, if I was going to suggest something, maybe you could sprinkle a little Parmesan cheese or something like that on the top. That's fine, but I wouldn't mess with it too much, honestly. There's not much you should put into it because all the flavors are going to come together very nicely. So then what we do is we take, where did I put it? There it is. Our little baking tray that we have here. We'll set them in there. Just like that. I've had, I forgot to tell you earlier, I turned the oven on. I set it to 350. Okay, and what we're going to do is just take it. Careful because, see, they will roll over. Now, that's one thing I'll say. If your squashes are really wiggly and they're like, you know, kicking to the side like this or like that, you can put them together if you want so that they kind of stay together. If you need to put something next to them so that they don't fall over, I suggest like, you know, a spoon or a fork or something like that that can just kind of hold it there. If you really have to do something because they're too wiggly, good thing I saved these, right? So you can take it before you stuff it, maybe try it out, see if it's super wiggly in your pan, and you can take your knife and just slightly cut a little bit of that skin off to make it flat. See, now it's not as wiggly as this side. And that easily goes back and forth. This does not. So you could do that too if you'd like. We didn't really have to do that. So there we go. Open your oven. And gently just put them in. Close the door, set the timer for about 30 minutes. And then, well, you'll see what they look like in 30 minutes. We'll be right back.
Ready.
Okay. All right, so welcome back. It's been about a half hour. Half hour, 35 minutes, something like that. Let's go ahead and open up the oven and see what we got going on. Oh, look at that. perfect. So I don't know if you can see on the camera. Everything's cooked nicely. You see how nice and crisp it's gotten on the edges. Looks good to me. Because remember, your stuffed ingredients is already cooked. So the squash is cooking, okay? So what I'm gonna do is, remember, that's super hot. Take some tongs. Ooh, look at that. It just smushed nice when I picked it up, see that? And this is all you do. You just pick it up, you put it right over on the plate. You've got a full meal. And now because like Luke said, the delicata squash goes really good with the syrup, and seeing as though we have a gallon of it, what we can do is just take a little bit of syrup. Again, very carefully if you've got the gallon. If you've got a smaller thing, I would say just maybe use a spoon. But you just drizzle a little bit right over the top. And there you go. Stuffed chorizo, or stuffed delicata with chorizo, onion, peppers, tomatoes, Swiss chard, and maple syrup. Ta-da! Luke, would you like to come over and join me?
Sure.
And we will taste this.
Oh yeah.
There is a fork for you, Luke.
Excellent.
There's a fork for me.
See,
Probably.
I'm just gonna go right in. Take some of that.
Go for it. Yeah, I want to take a little bit of the side is how I'm kind of doing it.
I'm just gonna try that skin. That said's edible.
Oh, that's right, the skin. Yeah, I'm going to get into that too.
Totally edible.
Let's see. Oh, and then that way you get a little bit of the syrup on it too.
Exactly.
Oh, come on.
Exactly.
I dropped my piece. Geez, you're already halfway through and I haven't even gotten one bite.
Oh, because I'm an Iron Man. You
That's
gotta
true.
eat fast. You gotta fuel fast. Delicious.
That did turn out pretty good. Not bad at all. So, again, everyone, thank you for joining us. I hope you... Careful. I hope you enjoy this when you make it for yourself and for your friends and your family. And thank you so much for supporting the Jamestown Farmers Market, right?
Yeah, public market.
The public market. I'm sorry.
It's okay. It's a farmer's market too. Yeah.
But thank you for supporting it. And that's all I have to say. Let's turn it over to Luke. Luke, what's happening in your neck of the woods?
Well, we'll do a little commercial here for another important project we're doing. So,
Oh, is it
Sean
true?
spends a lot of time in this kitchen with some other folks from the Mental Health Association. We've started a new social enterprise. If you notice behind us, there's Bernie over here.
This is true.
He's our stand-in for Father's Bernard. You can tell he's wearing a collar, like he's a little priest, right? So St. Bernards often have a healing kind of property. Of course, in lore, they used to have brandy around their neck. That's not so helpful for folks in recovery.
No.
So swapped out that barrel and put in a collar. Remind ourselves of the healing power that's possible when we connect with one another. And so we're making dog biscuits around in this kitchen that we then kind of sell in our community, getting people back to work who may have dropped out of the workforce.
Yes. It's a very important thing that we're doing, this partnership between the Mental Health Association and St. Luke's. A lot of people who suffer from substance use disorder and mental health disorders are out of the work environment for very long periods of time for different reasons, whether it's from being in treatment, from being homeless, or just caught up in their own lives, I guess is the best way to say it. So this is a good way to help people get back into the workforce by giving them a positive place to come, learn how to work again, learn how to do things, learn how to interact with people in that sort of way again after being incarcerated or on the streets or whatever it is for long periods of time. And this is a wonderful project that us at the Mental Health Association are just over the top excited about to be able to do with St. Luke's.
There are so many barriers in our lives, and together we can create a whole ecosystem of recovery and connection that allows us to be together in one community. So like this, the biscuits are all in circles, and our logo is a circle, reminding us of the whole system, the whole circle that is there, and this sign of connection. So that's our logo. We've got stickers. Sean, it's your sticker. You can have your own.
Well, thank you,
Father
Luke.
Bernard sticker.
I'm going to put it on my computer
Yeah, exactly.
for work.
Yeah, there you go.
I like it.
Anyway, so you can FatherBernards.com. You can buy biscuits right online, or sometimes at the public market. We've kind of suspended that for the season, simply because we're trying to focus on online right now. But we'll be back next year, and we're so delighted to be part partners with you in this community to make our community better.
Well, we're excited about this too. And if you'd like to learn more about the Mental Health Association, you could go to the mhachautauqua.org website and find out lots of information on what all we do to help people in recovery from, like I said, substance use or mental health situations. And the thing we like to say, you mentioned community, is the opposite of addiction is community. So yeah.
Thanks.
All right.
Good to be in your community. Thank you all.
Thank you, everyone.
Bon appetit.
Oh, bon appetit.
That's really a child.
There you go. I like that. Ooh, it's so good, Mr. Food.